Hey guys, so in a previous video I showed you how I paint Game Boy Color shells by just masking everything with tape all around the edges, and for the most part going around the edges isn't too complicated, but when it gets to a lot of these little fine areas where like there's a lot of little crevices, and especially on the inside of like the D-pad or inside of the button wells, it can be really finicky cutting out tiny little pieces, and then you want to use something to like really get in there and press it to all those little corners, and it's just very time consuming. The result is really nice in the end, but it just takes so long. But in that video somebody left a comment about this stuff called liquid mask. So I went to the art supply store and I found this stuff, and basically this is a kind of a liquid latex that you can paint on surfaces, and then you spray paint on top of that, and then you can peel this off. You can peel the mask away. So that makes it way easier for all these fine little details on the inside of the cracks, all these little holes everywhere. So I'm going to show you quickly how I do that. Let's start with the front of the shell here, and I'm just using a normal small little synthetic brush. And this stuff, you don't want to shake it, you just want to you don't want to get a lot of bubbles, so just kind of toss it back and forth a little. Just be kind of gentle with it. Maybe if you have like a stir stick or something would be good. But it's kind of like a rubber, or I guess latex is a rubber. It's from a rubber tree. But you basically just get some on your brush and paint it everywhere you don't want the paint to stick to. And you kind of want to apply it and not have it be too thick because it can kind of drip and whatever. So just apply it, and sometimes you might want to do a second coat, but just really think about where you want your paint to go and where you don't want it to go. So for on this edge here, I want it to go on the inside, but not even on the top part. So I'm going to paint on this edge here, like that, and then I'm going to carefully paint on this very top edge, just like this. And it's best if you prevent this from drying out on the brush, because it can get kind of stringy and rubbery all over the brush itself. So again, you don't want any to go on the inside here, and if any does, you can just wipe it away quickly with your finger. But yeah, you can see how it's drying here, but leaving kind of some spots. So just kind of go over that again, and you want to wait for it to dry a little while. These thicker parts will take, I don't know, 20-30 minutes maybe, depending on the weather. And you can see when it fully dries, this one dries clear. There's a bunch of different ones. Some of them dry a color, so you can see where it is you painted, but you can see it's like stringing already here. That's the latex kind of turning to rubber, like drying and turning to rubber. So you want to be kind of careful not to disrupt that. Like as this is drying, it's kind of like enamel paint, and you don't want to keep going over the same part that's mostly dry, because then it can kind of like blob together, and and then for parts like this, like the on and off switch, just maybe give that a second coat when it's fully dry. And yeah, for this area here, I found it really nice to just paint over it just like this, and it kind of just fills in the holes, and then let that dry. And then when you give it a second coat, everything will just stick a lot nicer, and it really just fills in these holes like perfectly, like beautifully. Actually, usually don't even worry about these. I just spray paint over them, and then like I'll just put a piece of tape here and then just really spray inside there. But this really makes it's really kind of fun when you peel it off and you see all the little holes. But yeah, just take your time, go all around everywhere, and once you're done with that and it's dry, then we'll also use some tape on like the larger areas. Just like that. You can see this part looks clear, so it's already pretty much dry there. So it's a little hard to see when it's dry because it dries clear. So, but it's definitely shinier than the plastic of the shell. Anyway, I'm going to finish this up and I will be back in a minute to show you masking the rest of it with tape. So. So it looks like it's all dry now. The way you can tell is that it's like crystal clear. And this depends on how yours dries. That this one happens to dry just clear. But at this point you may want to go ahead and give it a second coat. It's kind of up to you. If you want, you can do some tests where you like just put some on here, like on this big empty spot, let it dry, and then peel it off. You can kind of get a sense for like how it works. On these areas, like in the button wells and the D-pad and the start and select, I definitely put some on the inside, but then I also put some all around it too, so it's like all connected, so that way it can peel off in kind of like one piece. And then another thing you need to look out for is on the very crisp edges. I recommend giving a second coat there because sometimes it can, like, as it's drying, it can kind of like, you know, pull away from edges. It kind of like pools together and like, you know, so a second coat around these edges is a pretty good idea. And this sounds like it's a lot of work, but this stuff is actually, it's way easier to do this than to cut little pieces of tape and, you know, stick them everywhere and be super careful. And it also comes out way better, especially on like all these little like bumps and ridges and things. It's really hard to get tape in all of those little spots. So anyway, so yeah, so next I'll show you how to put tape all over the rest. So this part's just like usual. You just don't need to go to the very edge. You just want to make sure you cover the part that you actually painted. And one nice thing about areas like this is that even though there's like the little indentation, this one says, this is like where the power switch is, and it says on and off. You don't need to like get way down deep in there because you painted around it, hopefully. So you should paint around it. So this tape is sticking to the outside edge here, and it's touching the area where this stuff was painted on. So same thing here, all these little bumps, but over here is where it's like nice and smooth. And just ease that on. So now when you spray paint this part here, all this inside is masked, and we're just gonna be able to peel that away and not have to worry about it. So again, just take your time, and this is a lot easier now. For areas around these buttons, you might want to like make sure it's just really nicely pressed up against there. You can kind of feel it under the tape. So just like that. That's about all there is to it. So now we're going to go ahead and go spray paint this outside. And for paint, I'm going to be doing the same thing I did in the last video. I use a Montana Gold. I use a primer first, a plastic primer, and then this is just the color. This is SH White Pure, so it's just white pure. This was the color that I found matched the best for just plain pure white. And then I always finish that with a varnish spray. And it's not quite as important when painting on the inside of shells, but if you're painting on the outside, then you know, the primer and the varnish really makes a big difference. But yeah, so this one's all ready to go. So let's go do that now. So using this mask stuff isn't necessarily going to produce a better result, but it's going to make it easier. So that's just something to think about. Like it's not going to magically make your masking job better, although it can, because there's a lot of fine little details. It's hard to mask, but this is more of one of those things that I think just makes it a lot easier to do, rather than necessarily being just higher quality. But you can see when you lift off the tape has been stuck down to the mask, and that stuff just kind of peels away, kind of like almost like a glue. And you can see this line is nice and clean here. And you just want to go in here and pull out all of the you can see here, I'll get really close for this one. You can see there's a little bit of paint here where the tape didn't block it, but when I pull off the mask, this stuff just pulls the paint right away, pulls the paint right off. So it really makes this quite a lot easier. The guy who left the comment, I talked to him a little bit, just back and forth in the comment, and he said that liquid electrical tape might be even better. I haven't experimented with that. I've had really good luck with this liquid frisket stuff. But maybe you guys, someone out there, can go ahead and try liquid electrical tape and see how you do with that. But so far this stuff has been just amazing for me. It makes it way easier. It's also pretty satisfying to just peel it off. And as usual, there's still going to be some cleanup. Like I did put the mask here, but the paint is pretty thick, so it's still kind of, as you pull the mask away, it's still kind of like the paint is still kind of connected on top of it. But you can see it just almost crumbles away, so it cuts away really easily. Before, if you made a mistake, you'd have to really scrape away at the shell to get the paint off. But with this stuff, it just comes off really easy. here's the final result. These are for 2 different customers actually. But you can see they look... It's quite a lot of work painting these shells, and it's not something I want to do all the time, but the result does look really nice, I think. Especially if you really just take your time with them. But yeah, anyway, I guess that's it for this one, and I will see you guys next time.